I don't have another review sheet for you for this review, but I'll just be looking at the objective bookmark that I passed out at the beginning. If you still have it, that's great. If you don't, you might want to write these down. But this is our checklist of things that we should be able to do for the test tomorrow. So the first thing says that you need to know what CPCTC stands for, which means that for a question on the test, I might ask you, what does CPCTC stand for? And you would need to write out the words. So CPCTC means what?
Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent.
Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, so that's something you can flashcard or Quizlet or however you study for tomorrow. You need to know what that acronym means. If we're using it a lot, we should know what it is that we're saying. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. The second thing says, know the 8 ways to prove triangles are congruent. That means, on a test question, I might say, list the 8 ways to prove triangles are congruent. Right? To study those, the best place to go is to the flow chart that was in your notes. Again, this is something that can be flashcarded. Being able to list them, not just recognize them, because I'm not going to give you like a matching, okay? You need to list them. The way that I try to break it down to help myself memorize them and make sure that I got them all is I think about the 4 right triangle ways and the 4 non-right triangle ways.
Do we have to write out the words? Or can we do
Nope, just the acronyms is fine. You don't need to write out the whole big words. So when I'm trying to remember what they are, I think about, okay, right triangles. Those are 2 letters. So I could know an angle and one other side, which could either be a hypotenuse or a leg. So that gives me 2 ways, HA and LA. Or I could know 2 sides, which they could both be legs, LL, or a hypotenuse and a leg. One common wrong answer here is HH. Why is that a not so good answer?
There's only one.
Because there's only one hypotenuse in a triangle. Okay? But that is a common wrong answer. The students know the things we're talking about are hypotenuse, legs, and angles, and then just throw out a hypotenuse. But that doesn't work because we only have one of those in a triangle. Okay? So that is a common wrong answer. So as I read that off to the side, make sure you're noting to yourself that that's not something you want to study. Okay? Then we have our 4 ways for non-right triangles, which need 3 letters. So when I'm trying to remember these, I ask myself, how many angles do I know? I could know no angles, and that gives me a side, side, side. I could know 1 angle, and that would give me a side, angle, side, or I could know 2 angles, and get angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle. 2 common wrong answers here are angle, 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 which does not work, because I could have a little tiny 60, 60, 60 triangle, or I could have a bigger triangle that is 60, 60, 60. And they are not the same. Okay? So angle, angle, angle doesn't work. Another common wrong answer is students who think that 1 angle could be an SAS or an SSA. SSA does not work. Because when we name these off in a triangle, it should really work to read around the triangle backward or forward. So, for example, if I knew this, I would call that an angle, angle, side. But technically, side, angle, angle is fine, because that's the same thing. So I'm just going around the other direction. So if I took a side, side, angle, and I went around the triangle backwards, you'd be writing bad words on your paper, which is not what I want you to do. It doesn't work, okay? It's not a method. SSA, no good, okay? Don't put that in your list. And the last common wrong answer that students will give me in this portion in general is CPCTC. CPCTC does not say that 2 triangles are congruent. It's what we do after 2 triangles are congruent. Okay? So that does not work as a congruence method. CPCTC is what we do after we have congruent triangles. It does not give us congruent triangles. Okay? So study this list of 8 things, put them on flashcards, work on being able to just like draw this flow chart for yourself, whatever the best way to study this is going to be for you, but you should be prepared to list those 8 answers. Okay? Then back to our bookmarks. The third bullet point in the bookmark says, understand how to choose which congruency method applies. I'm not going to have any questions that just give you a picture and say, which type of congruence is this? But you need to be able to choose that in an appropriate proof. So once you've worked down into a proof and you get to your congruent triangles, you have to be able to choose which one of those 8 ways is the way that works with this particular picture. Okay? So there's not going to be any just pictures where you have to choose, but you will have to do that in the context of a proof. So then the next one is really the bulk of the test right here. Be able to prove that 2 triangles are congruent. Okay, that's what we did in pretty much every one of the homework assignments. I should maybe have another bullet point in after this one that says something like, be able to prove parts of triangles are congruent by a CPCTC. So first you would need to get your congruent triangles, and then this would be maybe a step or so beyond that. Okay, but that was the bulk of our homework problems, was just writing proofs. Proving 2 triangles are congruent, or proving parts are congruent by a CPCTC. Then understand the isosceles triangle theorem. So we learned that in our last lesson. The isosceles triangle theorem said that if 2 angles in a triangle are the same, then 2 sides are the same. Or if 2 sides are the same, then the 2 angles are the same. Okay? So the isosceles triangle theorem goes both ways. You should understand what that theorem is saying so that you can be able to prove problems using the isosceles triangle theorem like you did in the last homework assignment, the one that we just checked today. I promise there will be a problem similar to number 7, that very last one from the homework assignment J, the one that was due today. Okay, there will be a problem similar to that one on there, not exactly the same, but the same type of idea is that very last one from the homework. That's a good all-encompassing problem. We use isosceles triangles, we use triangle congruences, and we use CPCTC all together in there, so that was a really good problem. Okay. The best way to study for this test, those first couple things that say no, those are things that you could flashcard or Quizlet or however you study. Okay? But the bulk of the test is going to come in writing proofs. So the best way to study and prepare for a test where you will need to write proofs is to write proofs. Okay? So go back through your old homework assignments and try problems that were assigned again. Okay? If you want to come in after school and do that and just kind of work on writing proofs and have me check them and make sure that you're doing it right, that's fine. I'm going to be around for about an hour today after school. So if you want to come in here and study, but really the best way to study for math, or in this case to study for proofs, is to do proofs. Okay? Looking at them isn't even that good of a way. So just taking out your old homework assignments and reading them again doesn't really work as good as actually starting with a blank piece of paper and trying them again, and then maybe checking them back with your homework to see if they were right or wrong. Okay? That's the best way to study for this one. Now this test is coming right at the beginning of the second quarter, which has a pro and a con. The pro is you'll be able to correct it. As opposed to if I had kind of rushed things together, I could have squeezed this in right at the end of the quarter, but there wouldn't have been time to correct it then, so the grade just would have been what it is. Okay? So that's a pro. There will be time to correct this. The con is really starting today is the new quarter. You have 1 homework assignment in, and tomorrow you're going to have a 100-point test in. So that means after tomorrow, 100 of your 110 points are going to be this test, which is really big. Okay? So study hard to do your best for this test, because this is kind of going to set what the quarter's at. Now there's plenty of time in the next 9 weeks to kind of fix it if it doesn't go well. But that being said, we want it to go as good as possible. So study, practice, and prepare so that you can start out the quarter with a good grade tomorrow.